So, for those of you who don't know, the very esteemed F. Bryant, who's Pinnacle Mountain Interpreter Extraordinary and apparently volunteer coordinator for Pinnacle Mountain too. So, a man of many talents, expert rock hound, fossil hunter. So he's you know generous enough to come and do a little presentation about Leave No Trace for us, which he will be doing an extended version for the NITS in July or June. I can't remember right now, but it'll be coming up and there'll be a longer presentation. He did that for us last year, and we appreciate every time we get to see Matt. But everyone, please welcome Matt.
Guys, most of y'all probably know me. Those who are not, we're pleased to meet you guys this evening. But yeah, like I'm park interpreter working at Mountain State Park. I've been there for the last part of 10 years. So I've gotten pretty familiar with our resource. Part of working at Pinnacle that I've gotten to do is get really passionate about Leave No Trace. Most of y'all in y'all's program of Master Naturals have been exposed in one form or another to the message of so kind of start that off, got my certification as what was formerly known as the Master Educator, but they've now changed to level 1 and level 2. I'm a level 2 instructor now. My goal is to get many of our Master Naturalists and some other park staff members to get there with level 1 and level 2. My goal is trying Pinnacle Mountain State Park into what's known as a gold standard site. Y'all know how many other gold standard sites we have in Arkansas? One. That's the Buffalo River. So I'd like to stay on par because when you Google things to do in Arkansas or the top 10 things to do in Arkansas, Buffalo and Pinnacle Mountain are both within that top 10 list. And so I think we need to be staying on par with our other tourism destinations. And so being very passionate about the outdoors, loving Pinnacle Mountain itself, all very heavily loved and used parks. So Leave No Trace is an integral part messaging when we're out there dealing with general public or school groups. So how are some different ways that our public impacts the resource or any daily use area, or I should say any public use area? Traffic, so you're getting a lot of human-caused erosion from just the traffic alone. Some parks, say out west at Yosemite, have to control that traffic by closing the gates once the parking lots are full. We just have signs saying when the park is full, the park is full. Also shut down the access to our formerly known Stuckey Field or the overflow field to limit that access down to the carrying capacity of the parking area. Yeah, foot traffic in the park is one thing. When you show up there on a Saturday morning when it's 75 degrees, you're like, I want to go find somewhere else because it's like a madhouse here. What are some other ways? Trash, lots of litter. And one of the biggest problems, it's not just like dumping out cans of trash. It's usually people just putting in minimal effort. We have trash cans everywhere. In the West Summit picnic area alone, there's like 53 trash cans down there. But yet people can't get into the can, or they're just being kind of careless and they're opening their packaging and that little leaf or corner gets dropped on the ground. And those little pieces are really some of the bigger problems. That micro litter, as we know it, she was looking for things to do with the Bryant kids coming up. Do the micro litter challenge. Give the kids their PPE, their gloves, and a sandwich bag. Whoever gets the heaviest bag by weight, use a fish scale. Whoever fills a little sandwich bag with small items, things under like 2 inches and smaller, and no glass. We'll avoid glass. It's a fun way where they can be really competitive with each other and pick up some of the more dangerous items because they're small trash, corners of food packaging, and fishing line. That's the stuff that's going to cause a lot of choking and digestion problems for wildlife. Then some other ways are going to be like cultural aspects. If you're going to Plum Bayou State Park or even at Pinnacle, sometimes you come across things that were there from many, many years ago before we were parked. Lots of people want to take those things home. So it's important that we preserve the history of that area and leave what makes that area special there for the next person. And some other things I wanted to kind of go across is just kind of, I'm a visual person, so graphs like this help me. You see all the graphs of different public lands across the country, whether it's Corps of Engineers, Forest Service, BLM, or National Park Service. State parks across the country are by far the most visited. they're seeing a lot of the brunt. But it doesn't take a huge amount of effort from all of us to make an impact.
You don't happen to know any, like, statewide, how much more Arkansas State folks have visited than other states do?
I personally don't. If I can take time to research that and look into it. Yeah, I know that's data that state parks and tourism are both keeping track of. I just haven't seen the data on it, so I'd like to see that as well. So I can look into that and hopefully get it to y'all. But Leave No Trace is a spectrum. We don't all have to be a gold standard, basically acting as Bigfoot would, leaving no trace everywhere we go. We can be somewhere on the spectrum. We can clean up after our pet when we're out for a hike. We can use reusable shopping bags. We can tell our neighbor or our friends about the message of Leave No Trace in the city. Somewhere on that spectrum, we can all find a place to fit. No worries. Sorry. But there are 5 steps to recreational experiences. We all kind of go through these. And they start off with the anticipation phase. So you're anticipating your trip, you're planning for it, you're getting ready. So that is the anticipation phase. Then you go on your travel. You're actually moving from point A to point B. Then you're on site. You're immersed in the experience. Typically, 90% of the time, it's at this stage when our guests are getting exposed to Leave No Trace. That's where they're seeing the messaging, they're seeing the logos, or they're hearing about it in the program. But it's not going to make much of an effect at this stage because they're already here, they've already prepared for what they were going to do. We need to reach folks in the anticipation phase before they get on site. Following, they're going to be traveling back and doing their reflections. Hopefully, they've reflected on the messaging they had when they're on site, and they can anticipate a bit differently for the next. So, when did Leave No Trace start about? When did it first become a thing? Let's say it was in the late 60s, early 70s when it really kind of was born. It was born in the backcountry and wilderness areas, kind of amongst those guys that were out there and experiencing those backcountry areas, and they were wanting to make sure they leave those pristine as possible. It was more as a concept, common sense, if you will. But then it wasn't until the early 90s when it eventually evolved after land managers like Forest Service, National Park Service worked together and turned Leave No Trace into its own entity in 93, 94. Today, it's an international nonprofit based out of Boulder, Colorado, and they have a huge outreach. That is getting volunteers and school groups and trainers, educators, all taken care of across the country and across the world, so we can get some of these programs. One of the most effective ones is the traveling trainer program. They visited us a couple of times at Pinnacle Mountain in recent years when we were a hotspot in 2015, and then they had a revisit 16. We had the traveling trainers out of Pinnacle. So now these are educators that are picked to travel across the country in their Subaru and their little camping trailer, and they meet and they do programs with land managers across the country. So these are images from our last hotspot visits. We had volunteer groups come out, and we were doing some much needed erosion mitigation on the West Summit Trail. And Bigfoot has been a long time mascot of Leave No Trace. Those who don't recognize the other fellow, that was me years ago. And when I started as a seasonal interpreter. So what we're doing here, it's part of their logo. Trying to do the Leave No Trace there. All right. So as I've alluded to many times, the different levels of training. I'm currently at a level 2 instructor to give me more volunteers and other staff members, which would leave me and Sam, the other full-time interpreter, up to a level 2 or level 1 so we can get and it will register. How many of you guys remember working with all the 7 principles? Don't worry, because if you don't have them already, I have hang tags that everyone can take home. These are fun to clip onto your backpack and they come in different language. Actually, I literally different language. This one's in Spanish. But they have them for different recreational activities. Everything from front country to back country to geocaching to mountain biking. So there's a way to leave no trace regardless of what recreational activity you're doing. So one way to kind of remember these is with counting it down with different hand gestures. I was already getting ready for number 1. So principle number 1, you can either act like you're thinking or you're writing something down. You're planning ahead and prepare. So planning ahead and prepare for a day trip out to Pinnacle Mountain State Park. What are some of the things that you want to plan and prepare? Day outing out of Pinnacle. Have a trash bag. I want to bring some water with you. Bring a map, snack, sunscreen, first aid kit, bug spray, things of that nature. And also, if you were going on, let's say, a backcountry trip, you're going to be gone for several days. Everyone probably has a nosy neighbor or a nosy friend, nosy family member. Tell them about your trip and when you should be. If you're not back, you're going to be the first ones to tell EMS. Hey, back home at 7:58, like they said. Things like that are very helpful. All right, so that's plan ahead and prepare. Principle number 2 is travel and camp on durable surfaces. So staying on trails, staying on the paved trails if you're on the Kingfisher Arboretum, not veering off through the woods, creating your own little shortcuts, hiking up the West Summit Trail, not creating switchbacks. That's one of my biggest battles right now. That's why I have to have those ugly posts and cables to keep people on the flow of the trail, kind of like cattle guards. But you got to do what you got to do. And camping on durable surfaces. I don't need to be camping out in the middle of the Arkansas River or the Buffalo River. So I need to find somewhere suitable that is going to be sustainable for my imprint and the imprints of those following. That's principle number 2, travel and camp on durable surfaces. Number 3, trash your trash. Act like you're putting trash in your pocket, or it also works as disposing of waste property to some little trail. So digging a cat hole. So both litter and waste products need to be disposed of properly. So you either your trash or digging a cat hole. And in regards to that, what are some of the regulations with digging a cat hole? How deep underground do I need to bury the dude? In Arkansas, rocky soil, it might be a challenge. But generally, it's 6 to 8 inches. And a lot of trails, or at least nice gardening trails or hori-horis, they're going to have measurements on them. And Leave No Trace Soils has a lot of their own titanium ones that are measured out. But yeah, 6 to 8 inches, that's why you're getting below the mineral soil. And that way it has time for the microbes to decompose that material. And it's not getting out to the surface and exposing to wildlife and other guests. Also, I always like to bring this with me. It's kind of cumbersome. But a lot of people are probably wondering, what is this giant contraption that Matthew always carries around with him? Don't worry, it's not been used, it's just for show. But in some more sensitive areas, let's say you go spelunking, you're out caving, or you're on a river trip, and there's not really good areas or practical areas to leave your waste behind. This is what I affectionately call the poop tube. So they make things called swag bags, portable bathrooms. Take your business in here, and then you can just bag it and put it in this. And when you get home, then you can dispose it at home, and none of that stuff gets left behind where you're recreating. Yeah, it is. It's what Poop Genie wishes it was, because this is heavy duty. But also, a lot of climbers use these things. They're big walls like in Yosemite. Again, back in the 70s, climbers used to just kind of let it drop on their belayers. That's not fun for anybody. So climbers, cavers, and anyone on river trips and sensitive areas, this is kind of a solution to that problem. I like it because it always gets kind of a wow reaction. All right, so that is number 3, trash your trash, or dispose of waste properly. Number 4 is leave what you find. Isn't it? Oh, sorry. Yeah, leave what you find. So This is really the primary principle that most folks relate to when they think of leave no traces. Like leave only footprints. Yeah, so take only pictures. So that is really what spurred off to the rest of the 7 principles. So leave what you find, and so only footprints and take only pictures. So, I think Corbin also introduced that I'm a rock hound, but I'm only rock hounding where I'm allowed to. I see pretty quartz crystals at Pinnacle all the time. I was like, that's a nice one. We should leave that there. And I do catch guests on certain parts of the park. Like there's this section of base trail where the quartz really comes up through the trail. And every once in a while, I'll come across the trail and say, oh man, there's giant craters here now. People have been digging out the milk quartz right on the trail. This is actually something that we sold in a gift shop and it was kind of ugly and falling apart, so I really sell it anymore. This is my example of quartz of people that we want to make sure that we're leaving a resource. It's the thing that makes it special. You come out to Pinnacle and, oh wow, look at that. Or look at this pretty flower. Should I pick the flower? Once you maybe I want to put it in my little scrapbook and take it home and remember it. Again, all the different domino effects that's going to have later. And flowers, that's plants' way of reproducing. It's a food source for the pollinators. And then John Doe and Jane Doe behind me, they're not going to see that flower because they took it home. It's important that we do one flower. Only one flower. We only have 78,000 guests that visit Pinnacle. 78,000 guests? Oh man, all of Stuckey Field's been plucked.
Yeah.
Sketches in the nature journal. I'm a big advocate of nature journals. And something that we used to do in some of our nature journals when we did the spring day camps or mini day camps that Vera Bowie introduced me to was these solar sensitive papers. So taking items, maybe things I already had in my leaf press, some already pressed flowers, and doing solar prints of the photosensitive paper. Those I think are really cool, especially it's like a little science experiment that some kids may not be familiar with. But doing that either on paper or on fabric, that's a really cool thing. See what you find. Number 5 is be careful of fire. That's why I brought my matches. So part of that is always to consider. We always need a fire, especially right now. We're in a burn bin, so instead of a fire, what are some things that would supplement a lot of the needs I want from the fire? Fire gives us, it boosts our morale, gives us warmth, it cooks our food, it gives us light. What are some other things that we can use in supplement that? If we were in a burn ban right now, we were out on the trail. I needed light. Oh, thank goodness for lanterns. I needed warmth, sleeping bags or cuddles. If I needed to cook my food, got mini stoves or plan ahead and prepare. If you knew you're going to be out camping or hiking during a burn ban area, bringing in food that didn't require food. But there's always going to be a solution. But let's say we're not in a burn ban, we can go out and make a fire. We want to make sure we minimize that impact as much as possible. Let's go ahead and utilize established fire pits. We don't have to build a dozen fire pits in this one campsite. I don't need to build a big bonfire and cut down whole trees just for this one campsite I'm having for one night. And there's going to be, this is one of my favorite things, is the 5 Ds of collecting firewood. It's going to need to already be dry, because wet wood can burn, but not real well. And it needs to be dead, because dead wood, you don't want to be cutting down a live tree. Well, you're just killing another living thing, and green wood will not burn. So it needs to be down on the ground. We don't need anything stuff off trees because we could be causing more damage and also potentially injuring ourselves. And it needs to be distant. I don't need to collect the firewood. Who's all gone camping? You pull into a campsite and you weren't prepared to get your own firewood, and you're like, there's not a twig for half a mile. Everybody's scrape that place clean, and so you'll either have to go to the visitor center and buy some wood, or go without a fire. So try to distance. So pick a little here, maybe pass over a few, pick a little there, and where you're kind of spacing out where you're collecting from. You're leaving some there for those coming out. Then the last 5 is going to be DC. So generally, when I'm collecting my kindling, I want to make sure it's about finger size. And then for the actual fuel, not much bigger than my wrist, because any bigger than that, it's going to be a little too cumbersome to have to be carried. Make sense? The 5 Ds of firewood. Sure. So we're allowing gas stoves right now out of Sylvia currently because Perry County and both Pulaski counties under Vermont. So those folks that are camping there and in the cabins, the gas and propane stoves are being used because they can shut that off.
Like what we call it. The branches that were within hand while you're walking, you can break it off.
Mhm.
That's not there.
Yeah, it's not down, but there's going to be scenarios based on the situation that you're in. So it's better to pick it up if it's already on the ground. Taking that off the tree, yeah, it's going to work for you. And it's dry. It's going to be a lot, especially right after torrential rain. Everything else on the ground is going to be soaking wet. So it's going to be based on the circumstances. But for the sake of spreading this educational message, so people get more of an idea, I always kind of go with the 5 Ds. But we all know the situations that we're in. It's a spectrum. We're a spectrum. Yeah, we don't have to do it perfectly every single time. We don't have to be Bigfoot every single time. But as long as we're trying our best to do the best that we can in that. All right. And that leaves us with number 6. Respect God. That's why I brought my little mascot, the resource raccoon. So, do I need to feed this fella? Go give him one of the slices of pizza. I really appreciate it. But well, he would absolutely love that. It's not going to be what's best for him in this moment because that's going to create negative behaviors in him. He's going to get habituated, and he's going to rely on this guy in uniform giving him pizza. So that's going to give some bad behaviors to Mr. Resource. Also, when you're out camping and hiking, being aware of certain seasons, it's hunting season, or it's a nesting season, breathing season. We want to make sure that we're aware of those things so we can these animals as safely as possible. Not just by feeding them or trying to pet them, but just get. And a lot of times when you're hiking out at Pinnacle Mountain, you might come across wildlife. Like when I was closing up the visitor center at 5 today, we looked out the back door and there were some deer just kind of walking by. And like, those are the same ones that we saw this morning. Yeah, they're starting to bed down behind the visitor center. We need to go out there and give Bambi some cuddles. So with this one of my big things I like to teach kids for all wildlife, not just raccoons and deer, or especially when I'm doing a reptiles program with snakes, is utilizing what's called the rule of thumb. Hold your arm straight out like this with your thumb up. You can visually block that animal with your thumb, and you're at a safe distance. So the larger the animal, the greater the distance you're going to be. So can you guys all block resource raccoon with your thumb? Okay. The front row is experiencing difficulties with it. She's just close enough to me, a little too much in range, but the rest of you guys are safe from an animal this size. Now, what about the fluffy cows in Yellowstone? If one of those was standing up there. Far too close. Everyone's trying to pet the fluffy cow. You got to make sure you're utilizing the rule of thumb, keeping your distance. I say this for raccoons, bison, or even a weird-looking guy. Kids, keep your distance for everything. Yeah, you can't bend your arm, you can't double your thumbs. It's got to be one thumb up, straight. So that's respecting wildlife, and that leaves us with our final one, and that is number 7, and that's being courteous to other visitors. We're out on trail, we're out in the park. We want to keep our volume down. We want to make sure we're yielding to those who have the right of way for multi-trail users, and just being respectful of everybody's needs. I might be out there for one reason, someone else is there for another reason. So as long as we're kind of being respectful of each other, we can coexist, and everyone can have a good experience in that shared space. That point about shared trails, here's kind of the shared trails triangle. So who has right of way on the trail generally? This yield sign is going to say that an easy way to remember this is horses always win, so equestrians always yield to equestrians because with the animal component, there's a safety issue there. The animal, just to be safe, always yield to them, give them the right of way. And ask the rider, what would they be based on your terrain? What's the most comfortable side for that animal for you to step off? Uphill, downhill. It might depend on the individual. But yeah, horses always win, hikers always lose, and hikers have to choose. So generally at Pinnacle Mountain, that one really confuses folks because you're going to have a lot of bike and hiker interactions with our shared multi-use monument trails. So really, we're going to leave it up to the hikers to pick the situation. A lot of times the cyclists are riding uphill and they need to keep their momentum, or they're coming in too fast, they're not going to have a chance to really stop. So it's easiest for us hiker groups to go ahead and step off and let them pass. But it's kind of an easy way to remember. Horses always win, bikers always lose, and hikers have to choose. So, hikers choose. All right. Does you guys have any questions about those 7 principles? Y'all might be able to remember them? Text for anyone who wants them. I got some specific for kid language, which I need to find the English version. And then I have ones that are specific to what you're going to experience generally in this area, that is front country language. But also, I have a couple of activities I can share with you guys based on each of the principles that are fun to do with your groups. So, like with principle number 1, plan ahead and prepare. Writing in your journal is planning out your meal plan, what all do you need to change, and then one is go or no go. It's kind of like a Red Rover game. So you have your 2 teams, and I read a card, and they need to say either no way or okay, and it's almost in a Red Rover type of style. And this is all about planning for it. Most of it's about packaging for food. Then for principle number 2, durable surfaces, I have durable surface and hopscotch. And I lay this out on the ground, and I can make it even harder by making it a memory game. If you step on a non-durable surface, which is going to be thumbs down with a red, they have to unflip all the cards and start from the beginning again, try to remember their way through the course. So that one could take some time until someone finally memorizes it. So I don't make it quite a short course. It will go from like door to door.
Yeah.
So durable surface hopscotch. Number 3, trash your trash. I had the trash timeline. This one always seems to amaze people about how long it takes many common items to decompose. Like the first card you can see, here's a tin can. A lot of those at Pinnacle. Approximately 50 to 60 years for those things to generally start really kind of returning back to an original elements. What about a disposable diaper? Surprisingly, very close. 450 years. Which means every poopy diaper ever pooped in is still out there. Yeah. I do. I have a 30-month-old. A lot of diapers. Number 4, respecting wildlife. We can do that rule of thumb, and then with number 5, be careful with fire. Really going scatterbrain this evening, but we can practice with different type of fire making, like the mound fire on top of a tarp or foil. So that way is completely no trace. If you're out in the backcountry and you have a shovel or a trowel with you, you can dig a hole, remove all your soil, build it up into a mound with the divot in the top, have your fire on top of that, and when you're done, it's cool. You can put it all back into the ground. So practicing those kinds of things. Oh, and also with back to number 3, they can actually do what's called the cat hole relay, where they can dig a hole. They have to take the dirt to one area and then go back and dig it and pass the baton or the shovel. And I also like to talk about, this is not what you think it is. This is the effects on local water when we're not being careful with our trash. So like after what's been added in here is some bug spray, some sunscreen. So if we went out swimming in the local creek, I'll wash my dishes, so there's a little bit of coffee grounds and food scraps in there. And so all that kind of stuff ending up in our water. And with cat holes, with not just human waste, but food waste, we want to make sure our gray water, the dishwater, that's also getting treated the same as it would with the other waste. It can be buried into a cat hole or carried back out with us. That way it's not ending up not only in the ground, but in our waterways. 200 feet. And again, you want to treat your campsite in those amenity areas similar to this triangle. So ignore that this is a yield sign. Say one area is where your camper sleep. 200 feet in one direction is going to be your bathroom area. Sure. 200 feet in another area will be your kitchen. You're doing your cooking and you're eating your dishes. That way the animals go to the stinky areas, not to where you're sleeping. So, yeah, keeping those in mind, but also those need to be 200 feet from the water source. That way, nothing is getting contaminated into the waterways. Yeah, 6 to 8 inches deep underground for the cat hole, but 200 feet from water and 200 feet from ocean. So I was went back to 3, back to 5, on to 6, which was being respectful of wildlife. Oh yeah, that was the rule of thumb. 7 is going to be the ethics game. So this one now is actually good for kids practicing their debate skills. And so this one really gets kids thinking and in conversations, because what I have here are all common problems in a park setting. And what the kids basically need to do, let's say I have this here. What's the worst impact going on at Pinnacle today? And we kind of break it into 2 groups and say, stepping on trampoline on the wildflowers or graffiti and carving onto the resource. And so this spurs a lot of conversations and debates, and then we can move on to other topics to see. None of them are really going to be wrong. They're all bad problems. It gets you thinking. It's like, oh, maybe those are issues I need to consider not allowing to happen, like going to the parks when they're not open, before they open or after they close, or letting your pet off leash. Which part of this, not cleaning up after pets, this is something that we recently really discovered being an issue at Pinnacle on the Kingfisher Trail. This past weekend, we had our edible medicinal plants walk. We walked from the visitor center down to the Kingfisher Trail, and we were looking around for plants. But while I let my herbalist do a lot of the plant knowledge talk, I'm looking forward to the next plant she's going to talk about. I was noticing all along the trail, lots and lots of dead beetles. But not just any beetles, they were all dung beetles. They were all dead all the way around the Kingfisher Trail. My only explanation is because people don't clean up after their pets. These insects are getting contaminated from pet feces that have medicines. Flea and tick and heartworm medications are going to have the same effect on the bad bugs as they are the good bugs. So that's important why we need to clean up after animals, not just because it's gross to see or step in, but the local critters getting into it is going to have an effect on them. So that was a real life scenario. We got to have a Leave No Trace poop talk during an edible plant class. What a great day. But yeah, the ethics game definitely brings up a lot of good conversations. So if you guys are ever wanting to borrow my Leave No Trace, I have this at my office, and y'all are welcome to check it out, along with any other educational materials. But without any further ado, because I think my rambling is coming to an end, I'll go ahead and put a bookmark in it there. And if y'all have questions for me, I'll be happy to take it.
Okay, so how do we
We get certified. I get a head count from you guys of those that are interested. Then I pass that along to Rob Stevens, who is our state advocate for Leave No Trace. He's been our advocate for many years. And we organize and set up a training event to have you guys go through either the 1 day or the 2 day or the week-long class. For the week-long class, to become a level 2 instructor such as myself, that's one that's going to require something outside of state parks. There's only a handful of accredited organizations and agencies that can teach those. Like I got mine through the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. So I had to travel to Roanoke, Virginia, but thankfully I didn't have to pay for it out of pocket. I was able to get a scholarship from, of all places, Coors. Coors was offering a couple of scholarships, and Rob was able to snag one for me and awarded it to me a couple of years ago. So I was able to take a class to go to that. So those are really helpful, looking for grants and scholarships to get those higher level trainings.
who do I talk to about getting somebody out of wildlife to do it 1 day or maybe even a 2 day?
The 1 day I can easily go do. For a 2 day, I can team up with Rob to pull in the other level 2 instructors, because we all just last month had a surprise meeting at Pinnacle where I got to meet the second command, the assistant director of Leave No Trace, Susan Alcadis, out of Boulder, Colorado. She just stopped by to visit, and she toured the park, and I told her basically what my goal is, and so she's really eager to help us along. So the awareness workshops, like kind of what I'm doing here, can last from 30 minutes to an all day. It just depends on the depth. But for the level 1 and 2, those can be 2 days, which basically 5 hours. Um, but for like the level 2, such as what I had, that was a full week.
Yeah.
We were backpacking into the backcountry off the Appalachian Trail. There's Carbons Coves in Roanoke, Virginia, in early March. Coldest I've ever been. But it was a great experience. Where I learned about some really hardcore leaving the trees people. I thought I was hardcore leaving the trees, but hardcore to drink my own grape. Especially when it's below zero. Just walk behind me with a branch. I do a lot of that at Pinnacle where people think I'm just dancing around or acting goofy. I'm deliberately playing hopscotch, trying to step on rocks and avoid muddy spots. But I'm doing that out of practice. But to the side, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions after the session is over.
And everybody seems happy. Hi, Stu. So thanks, Matt. I think we probably are interested in putting together a list of names of people want to get certified. I know I would love to. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you do this, you gotta get that last, and people are asking for extended. Activities on Sunday. And so I'll connect with you on that later.
I know just out of Central or the Little Rock area, we have about 10 level 2 instructors, whether they're affiliated with Boy Scouts, which most of them were, our state advocate, and then myself, and then Justin Baker, who was part of the supply when she had hers. She got a grant that was happening at the state parks and got up in Buffalo. About 10 of us, hopefully, between that core group, we can get some classes organized for our chapter and the neighboring chapters of the hills.
Cool. Yeah. And so you think like at a Bible blast, if we did like a morning session and one day and 5 hours, that would be pretty much a full day. So yeah, we could do that in 2 days in Bible blast, right?
And the best thing about this is it can be intertwined with anything else that you're doing.
Yeah.
Just leaving, so y'all can already have your agenda with what you're covering, and just we'll add this in there. It's just like salt and pepper on there.
Well, and we really want to thank you. And I want to contribute to, I don't want to, we want to contribute to your grinder, a polish to get some of the rocks polished.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Uh, Anybody want any dessert or pizza before we go? I do want one of these hangers too.
Got front country.
Oh, yeah.
Got Spanish ones there. Well, and got river corridors. There's one for fishing. And I have these that I'm collecting myself. I have a stack this big of just different ones I've collected over the years. There it is.
Oh, how sweet. All right, I'm going to sign off here, guys. Thank you.